Hello everyone, Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. Today is Sunday, June the 23rd, 3:35 p.m. Rio de Janeiro time. I'm very happy to be here with you. It has been a few Sundays that we haven't been able to meet, but I'm glad to be here. I see Bill, WS Bill. Oi, Luciano. Pretty happy to see you around, Bill. Bill never misses our live streams. So good to see you here, Bill. Let me see if our live stream is alive and kicking. I think so. There are 5 likes already. Thank you so much, you guys. The likes do help us reach more people, and it also helps our content to show up when people are searching for the subjects we discuss here live. I hope internet is working fine. Let me see if our connection is as it should. We are using a Starlink connection. Tell me if anything happens to the live stream, but hopefully the video is gonna be synced to our audio. But you let me know if you have any issues. We have Mackenzie Bailey. Mackenzie, welcome to the chat. Welcome to our live stream. Yes, you are welcome to ask questions, and we're gonna be discussing here live. Just an interesting piece of information for those of you considering applying for the Golden Visa, also known as Real Estate Investment Visa, or Viper. Portugal has ended the program of Golden Visa based on real estate acquisition, and Spain is doing the same as we speak. And if you're asking yourself, well, if Portugal got rid of the Golden Visa slash real estate route, if Spain is doing the same, maybe Brazil is also planning to get rid of the Golden Visa slash real estate route in the near future. Well, we don't think so, and the reason why we don't think so is because, as you may well know, Brazil has like continental dimensions, and the explanation for Portugal and Spain to get rid of the real estate route for the Golden Visa is because the presence of foreign citizens acquiring properties in those markets is pushing prices up substantially. So like local residents or the citizenships of Portugal and Spain, they feel like the idea of granting the Golden Visa, at least through the real estate route, is not really working, in their favor, right? And it kind of makes sense because, particularly in Portugal, right, the minimum wage is roughly 820 euros, if I'm not mistaken. So we're talking about less than $1,000 a month. And if you think about, the United States standard, for instance, there is no minimum wage set on a monthly basis, but we can tell very easily that the income levels are substantially higher in the United States, and therefore U.S. citizens, when they come to the Portuguese market, they are going to, of course, push prices up because they can, always pay more than local Portuguese citizens. Okay, but think about Brazil, right? Like Brazil has continental dimensions. If you think about the size of Portugal, right? Portugal is for sure, much smaller than the state of São Paulo alone. And maybe Spain is bigger than São Paulo. I don't know, but I know that Portugal is really, like small from a geographical perspective, and Brazil is huge. So it does not matter how many foreign citizens are coming to Brazil. There is always room for more buyers. and therefore it shouldn't make sense for the Brazilian government to get rid of the real estate route for the golden visa anytime soon, in my opinion. Let's see, Mackenzie, I was recently in Brazil. I spent 130 days. I got a visa extension for 90 days, so I had 50 days remaining, so I can go back and use my 50 days because I had to go home for family emergency. Mackenzie, this is the prevailing understanding. If you have just 90 days, before you get to the 90 days, you apply for an extension. And if you can explain why you asking for an extension, right? Like you shouldn't just go to the Brazilian Federal Police and say, well, I need to stay longer because I'm really enjoying Brazil. Usually it needs more than that. And then if you provide a reasonable explanation, they are going to grant you the extension. And yes, if you leave Brazil before the 90-day extension is over, is used up, the idea is that you can come back and use the remaining days that you got for your extension. Now, Brazilian immigration is kind of famous for not being super consistent in terms of the interpretation, but at least in our experience, nobody ever faced an issue when trying to use days remaining from an extension granted by the Brazilian Federal Police. All right, Mackenzie, I hope that was helpful. We have here Value Traveler. Welcome, Value Traveler. Good to see you here. I don't recall seeing Value Traveler in a prior live stream. So if this is your first time, welcome to the gang, and I hope to see you again. Value Traveler, so what do most foreigners do for work in Brazil? Are there many opportunities in IT for non-Portuguese speakers? Value Traveler, actually the trend is for IT people in Brazil to work remotely, mostly for U.S. employers. It's super common in Brazil for IT developers to establish themselves in Brazil but continue to work abroad. Now, if the reason for you to work locally in Brazil is to secure a visa, I would think that's pretty easy. That should be pretty easy for you to accomplish because you're going to be working for lower wages, right? Like, I mean, if you're working for a local employer in Brazil, of course, you're not going to be paid the same thing that an IT developer would be able to achieve by working for a U.S. employer, for instance. But the upside is that an IT employer locally in Brazil should be interested in sponsoring you for a visa, given that they are going to be paying you less than what you would be paid if you were to work for a U.S. employer, right? So there is a trade-off over here. Now, this is more like in theory. I don't recall a client of ours working for a local IT employer, but I'm sure there is no shortage of IT positions in Brazil with the potential of securing a work visa for you. First time, yes, Value Traveler confirmed. First time, yes. I hope that was helpful, Value Traveler, and keep the participation going, all right? Okay, we have here Ellie. I'm calling Ellie. Maybe I'm mispronouncing, but L double JXW. Let's have a nickname for you as Ellie, if you don't mind, or if you have another name, feel free to share with us. I am almost sure you've been here before, so welcome back. Question about taxes. Ellie is asking, in the case of a digital nomad and real estate investment visa, after 185 days in Brazil, how the taxation works in case of capital gains and dividends from abroad. Okay, so there are different triggers or different ways for you to become a tax resident, and of course, nobody is going to raise their arms to say, yes, I want to become a tax resident. This is something that is going to occur automatically, right? And in the case of the digital nomad and the real estate investment visa, uh, both are temporary. The digital nomad is always temporary, is good for a year, renewable for a second year. The real estate investment visa is good for 4 years, but it's still temporary, right? Like temporary in a sense that is good for just 4 years. So both of them, they would not cause you to become a tax resident, right? What is going to cause you to become a tax resident is going to be exactly the time spent in Brazil in any given 12-month period of time. It doesn't need to be a calendar year. Very important. Some people, they are going to think about January the 1st to December the 31st, and that's not how it works. There is a moving period of 12 months trying to catch you, trying to see if you've been in the country for over 183 days. So 183 days is the limit. Once you've been in Brazil 1 day more, meaning 184 days, all of a sudden you are a tax resident. And if you become a tax resident, yes, there are going to be different approaches to assess your tax liability. Capital gains and dividends are two of the different, let's say, tracks for taxation to be assessed. Dividends, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be pretty much regular income. There is no tax break for dividends, meaning that if you're getting dividends, you would be paying taxes based on your tax bracket. Whenever we are talking about tax brackets for regular income, most foreign citizens, not surprisingly, they are going to be bumped to the highest tax bracket possible, just because the Brazilian tax brackets, they are based on Brazilian income, which not surprisingly are kind of low when compared to income from abroad. So chances are, Ellie, that you would be paying 27.5% on your dividends from abroad. I would still recommend you to check with a Brazilian CPA to make sure that this is correct. In terms of capital gains, we have, of course, better tax brackets. A very common one for real estate, for instance, is going to be 15% for capital gains. And capital gains could vary according to how much those gains are, and also for how long you have hold the assets, the underlying assets. But just as a reference, pretty common in the Brazilian taxation framework for you to pay a 15% tax whenever you're selling a property, and this 15% is going to be charged on the profit or on the capital gains you got. So let's say if you bought real estate for 1 million reais and you're selling real estate for 2 million reais, the gain here would be 1 million reais, and 15% would mean 150,000 reais in taxes to be paid. I hope that was helpful. DB Hodler, welcome DB. DB is coming here often. I have a consultation scheduled. Glad that you know, DB. We're going to be able to meet, I guess, in private. Can I include my girlfriend in the Zoom call? I am in the US and she's in Brazil. Yes, DB. That's pretty common, actually. The same link. The same link that you got, like once you schedule the consultation, you get a receipt for the amount paid, and you also get a link. It's a Zoom link. And yes, DB, just forward the email or the link by itself. as you probably know, your girlfriend would probably prefer to receive information over WhatsApp instead of an email. So just copy the Zoom link over WhatsApp, forward to your girlfriend, and don't let her forget about the schedule time. That happens every now and then because in your case, you're going to receive a reminder, so it's going to be easier for you to remember about our consultation, but your girlfriend, she's not going to get those reminders. So it's going to be up to you to keep her aware of the meeting time. And again, as long as she has the link, there is no need to add her to the consultation. She's going to be allowed to enter the consultation and meet with us live. Okay, one reason why we use Zoom, sometimes people say, well, but I want to have a phone call or I want to meet over WhatsApp. And we always insist on meeting over Zoom. And the reason for that is because Zoom makes very easy for us to share many resources. In every single consultation we have, we do share resources. So if we're talking, for instance, about the RNM card, we're gonna, show the RNM card on the screen. If we're talking about currency exchange, we're gonna go over the list of currency exchange banks for you to see the options out there. So that's the same thing for every single subject. There is always some type of resource we can share. Sometimes a resource that's available over the internet, sometimes a resource that we have saved in our files. For instance, for people trying to marry in Brazil, we have a sample list of requirements coming from actual registration offices known in Brazil as cartórios. And then we can basically, share this sample requirement list with the client, and the client can have this kind of idea of what is going to entail, like the process to marry in Brazil in terms of requirements. All right, DB, but yes, we're going to be very happy to meet you and your girlfriend in the same Zoom call. Value traveler, yeah, if I come, it won't just be about the money, or I would try and get a position in the US. You're very welcome, Value. Yes, keep the questions coming, keep the participations coming. And by the way, folks, like if you have an experience, let's say if we're talking about a certain topic and you have some experience with that topic, like a first-hand experience that you had with that topic, feel free to share. The concept here in our live stream is not just to have myself, telling you what it is, but it's also about listening in a sense that if you share your experience, other participants, they can learn from your experience as well. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Mackenzie, thank you very much because the Polícia Federal said I could. I just wanted to confirm the information. Yes, Mackenzie, so I'm happy that my answer is in line with the Brazilian Federal Police. Just remember, okay, like they are not super consistent. So whenever you're coming back to Brazil, make sure to have, those papers or, whatever you took to the interview at the Polícia Federal handy, just to explain that you did your homework in terms of, being prepared to re-enter the country under the extension. All right, Mackenzie, but you should be good. Ellie says it's okay, Ellie. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you for letting us call you Ellie. Ronnie Dio, welcome, Ronnie. Ronnie is also a friend of ours who's been showing up for a while. Oi, Luciano, I still have not had a response from Santander about an international mortgage between the US and Brazil. Ronnie, thank you for sharing. I remember, Ronnie, in our last live stream, I told you I really like Santander. And by the way, in Portuguese, we call Santander, right? But most foreign citizens, they're going to say Santander. Okay, so I hope the other participants, they know about, they know which bank we're talking about. But Ronnie, I told you, right? Like, I mean, I don't have a bank account manager for several months. So Santander, they are pretty nimble. They have a lot of products designed for, expats, for international nomads. They have some very interesting products for our community. But on the other hand, it looks like sometimes they don't have enough personnel to take care of, questions or specific requirements, Ronnie. But my recommendation is for you, to persist, keep the communication with Santander. Another bank, this bank was, or this bank has been advertising about, potential mortgage for foreign citizens, is Bank Inter, okay, INTER. Let me write over here. Bank Inter. This bank is based in Brazil. It's a kind of internet bank. Okay, and I remember, like, we had a few transactions with foreign citizens seeking a mortgage from Banco Inter in Brazil. So that's another option, DB, for you to consider. Listen, we are not vouching, right? I'm not telling you that they're going to give you good conditions, they're going to help you out. I'm just sharing that I know that this bank was trying to offer, they were trying to package a mortgage product for foreign citizens, particularly in the state of Rio de Janeiro. All right, so in the meantime, because you're waiting for some feedback, sorry, it wasn't DB, it was Ronnie. I apologize. Kind of a little bit tired today. A lot of changes recently, location-wise. But Ronnie, so I was talking about Banco Inter, and in the meantime, while you're waiting for feedback from Santander, maybe you would consider trying something with Banco Inter. Ari, welcome, Ari. Ari, all right. Hello, Luciano. Ari, long-time watcher and liker of these videos, always very informative. Glad I have now found the property in Brazil I wish to purchase and can now engage your firm. I hope it is fine, Ari, to say that we met over a consultation. I was very pleased with your plans. You have, a little bit of experience with Brazil, and you know what you want from the country, and you're ready to pull the trigger. It was a real pleasure meeting you, Ari, in a consultation, and yes, we're gonna be here for you. All right, we have Ellie. Ellie says, with real estate investment, after 4 years, I become a permanent resident. What are the tax implications? I would be a Brazilian tax resident regardless of time spent in Brazil. Ellie, so both assumptions here, they look right to me. Right, the first assumption is real estate investment. After 4 years, you become a permanent resident. We have some videos recorded in our channels talking about 8 years. The 8 years is a more conservative interpretation of the law, and from a more strict and how can I say, more logical interpretation of Brazilian law. Actually, you should wait for 8 years. But the Brazilian Federal Police and the immigration as a whole, they've been accepting applications after 4 years. Okay, so our current recommendation to clients is, after 4 years, yes, apply for the citizenship, or you can just become a permanent resident, as you say. But the good thing is, after 4 years, in theory, you can choose between permanent residency and citizenship. Tax implications. I would be a Brazilian tax resident regardless of time spent in Brazil. Yeah, so during the first 4 years of the real estate investment visa, this is just a temporary residency, and therefore it should not trigger the tax residency as you don't exceed the 183 days. So you get the golden visa, right? Got the golden visa. You have 4 years to decide if you want to become a permanent resident. And after these 4 years, they are going to issue the permanent residency no matter what you want, right? So let's say if you are within the 4 years period, let's say 3 years and a half, and you say, you know what, I don't want to become a permanent resident. You don't need to do anything. You just let your visa expire, because for you to get the permanent visa or the permanent residency, that's the correct technical term, you will need to apply, right? You need to apply for the permanent residency. So if you just let the 4 years expire, guess what? You're not going to become a permanent resident, right? On the other hand, you're also not going to have a temporary residency. You're not going to have anything. So this is common. Like some people, they have a certain plan for Brazil, but as time changes, sometimes they change their minds, and that's fine. That's part of life. You're always reassessing your plans. And so for some people, they are going to let the temporary residency expire, and therefore they are not going to become a tax resident, okay? But let's say if Ellie decides to become a permanent resident, and then Ellie applies for the permanent residency, yes, Ellie, you're going to become a tax resident no matter how much time you are spending in Brazil. Thinking about timeline, you get the temporary residency, the golden visa temporary residency, the first 4 years. You just need to stay in Brazil 14 days for every couple of years. So because we're talking about 4 years, the minimum amount of time you should stay in Brazil is going to be 14 plus 14, which means 48 days, right? Less than a month. Okay, so for 4 years, all you need to do every couple of years, show up in Brazil for 14 days. This is going to allow you to retain the temporary residency and potentially apply for the permanent residency. Now, on the upper bracket, we just spoke about the lower bracket. On the upper bracket, if you exceeded the 183 days, meaning you've been in the country for 184 days, yes, you're going to become a tax resident, right? So two triggers here in Ellie's example. If Ellie applies for the permanent residency after 4 years, Ellie becomes a tax resident on the day of the approval, right? The second trigger is going to be no matter what the immigration status. If Ellie stays in Brazil for 184 days in any given 12-month period, it doesn't need to be a calendar year. It just needs to be any moving 12-month period of time. Then you also become a tax resident. And as a tax resident, in a very simplified manner, you're gonna need to report to the Brazilian government your global income. Okay, and global income, it means income. It doesn't mean money sent to Brazil. That's a very common misconception or confusion. People say, well, but I'm not going to be sending money to Brazil. Or, you know what, like if I send the money to Brazil, am I going to be taxed? Like, so the tax, the income tax, as the name says, is going to apply on income. So it does not matter if you are really sending money to Brazil or not. You're going to be paying the income tax to Brazil no matter what. This is a big downside to many foreign citizens. And what the Brazilian authority does, as many other governments do, is to accept whatever you're paying as tax in your country of origin as a credit against your tax liability in Brazil. So let's say, again, it's a very high level example, and you should consult with a Brazilian CPA to make sure that this applies to your case. But from a very high level, the explanation goes like this: if you're paying a 10% tax bracket in your country of residence and Brazil, and in Brazil you would pay 27.5. In Brazil, you're gonna pay only the difference, meaning the 17.5%, and not the entire 27.5%. So in theory, you're not being double taxed because you are paying a little bit in your country and the remainder in Brazil, avoiding paying twice the same amount. Okay, Ellie, the Gentle Chief. Welcome back, the Gentle Chief. Hello, Luciano. I hope all is well. Everything is good over here. The Gentle Chief. Can I work as a digital nomad while under a student visa? Pretty good question, the Gentle Chief. And in our understanding, yes, you can work as a digital nomad. Sometimes we do issue legal opinions here at the firm, upon request by U.S. employers. U.S. employers, sometimes they are worried that their employees are going to work in Brazil, and this could eventually trigger some type of tax liability or employment benefits for the employees because they are in Brazil, right? And our explanation is that from the Brazilian government perspective, whenever there is a digital nomad type of work in Brazil, the labor relationship is going to occur outside of Brazil. So it's almost like the Brazilian government doesn't see the work being done because you're doing, for instance, from your apartment or from your hotel or from your rental. So Brazilian government doesn't see, and therefore is almost like it does not exist. So if you have a student visa and you are doing digital nomad work, meaning you're working for a company abroad, you're being paid abroad, and you're not like knocking on someone's door in Brazil, like you're not doing solicitation, you're not meeting with other employees, like all the work situation is outside of Brazil. From this perspective, we don't see any problems for you under a student visa to be doing work as a digital nomad. Another variation of your question, the Gentle Chief, that is going to help you understand this dynamic is for people who are traveling into Brazil under either a tourist visa or a visa waiver, right? Like when a U.S. citizen enters Brazil, a U.S. citizen is going to travel under a visa waiver, all right? And every time a foreign citizen, not a foreign citizen, a U.S. citizen enters Brazil under a visa waiver, President Lula cries a bit because President Lula is a kind of joke. President Lula has been trying really hard to make enforceable for U.S. citizens to present a visa to enter Brazil. So President Lula has tried 4 times, and for 4 times he hasn't been able to make the visa enforced. Last time, he was going to publish the executive order making mandatory for U.S. citizens to present a visa at the border, and then the Brazilian Congress said, "Listen, if you do so, we're gonna pass a bill precluding the Brazilian government from requesting a visa to U.S. citizens, Canadians, and Australians." And the reason is basically like common sense, because not surprisingly, U.S. citizens, they spent a boatload of money when they come to Brazil. So it is counterproductive for Brazil to ask U.S. citizens to present a visa when entering Brazil, right? And maybe you're going to ask, well, why is President Lula so concerned about asking for a visa? And the reason is more like ideological. Is I would say is purely ideology, and the idea goes like this: the reciprocity, right? Like reciprocity is a very important concept in international relations. So President Lula says, listen, if the United States is going to make our citizens, wait for years to get a visa, what about we make sure that they do get a visa before visiting Brazil? So I also understand and respect President Lula's position, because he's right. This is going to bring more like self-respect to Brazil as a country, meaning, listen, if you're going to ask us for a visa, we also going to ask you guys for a visa. But the distinction comes in my perspective, I would prefer the current waiver because it's not just ideology. You need to look at the reality. And the reality is, I would say 99% of US citizens, they come to Brazil legally. And whenever they want to stay in Brazil, they are going to go through the immigration requirements, right? Like they're going to secure a digital nomad visa. They are going to secure a retirement visa, which, in my opinion, it is too cumbersome. The requirements, they are unreasonable, in my opinion. Okay, but we are still handling many retirement visa applications here at the firm. Very happy to say that we are the unofficial choice for U.S. military personnel, okay, like in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s. Unfortunately, a lot of U.S. military personnel who have, faced some type of, injury, and then they need to retire much earlier than they would like to be the case, so they come to Brazil. And we are the unofficial provider of choice. I say the unofficial because our name is not in any list, but given the word of mouth, like every single week, a new military person from the United States is going to come to us and say, listen, a friend of mine, and then they are going to share usually the name, recommended your firm as the provider. So that's why I say unofficial provider. But it's very unreasonable from my perspective, given, the requirements, particularly in terms of legalization of paperwork. Brazil has a big attachment to the apostille legalization, and it's kind of cumbersome. They ask, some documents that make no sense to be apostilled. I'm going to give you an example. A letter from a U.S. bank saying that you have the capability of wiring funds to Brazil, which is the case for pretty much any bank in the U.S., right? I mean, to wire funds abroad is such a common feature, particularly when we're talking about the main U.S. banks. So I think it's just silly to make, an immigrant to go after such a letter and then get an apostille, get this thing translated. But anyhow, going back to the point we were discussing, the idea is like if you are under a student visa, yes, you can work as a digital nomad because the labor relationship is abroad. All right, the gentle chief, I hope that was helpful. And I just gave you a little bit of explanation about the reasons for President Lula to ask U.S. citizens to present a visa, but he hasn't been able to make this go through. So he tried 4 times. He was defeated for 4 times, and I would say he's not going to be able to accomplish that. Okay, but because his administration is facing a lot of resistance from the Congress. He's always coming back with ideology plagued, I would say, proposals, and the Congress is trying to be more. And of course, like Brazilian Congress is far from perfect. We all know that, and that could be said probably about the U.S. Congress or any other Congress in the world. So I'm not bad mouthing, President Lula or the Congress, but I'm bringing you here the explanation about this whole dispute. Let's implement a visa, let's not implement a visa. So President Lula tried for 4 times to implement the visa requirement. He hasn't succeeded. In my opinion, he will not succeed. That's kind of based on the idea that U.S. citizens, they spend a boatload of money And if you create an additional hurdle, not surprisingly, a percentage of such visitors or travelers, they are going to say, you know what, I don't want to, handle this BS visa stuff or this visa BS. I'm going to travel to Mexico. I'm going to travel to Portugal. I'm going to go somewhere in which I don't need to be bogged down with visa stuff. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, let's see who else we have over here. Steve Yu, good to see you back, Steve Yu. When purchasing property in Brazil, what are the insurance requirements for the property and content in the property? What are the requirements for insurance on auto? So, interesting question, Steve. So, for properties, very surprisingly or not, depending on who's thinking about this question, I would say not surprisingly to us Brazilians, it's going to be substantially lower because construction in Brazil is done very differently than it is in the United States. Usually, constructions in Brazil, they are going to be much more solid. They're done like even like the inner walls of a house. Usually, they're going to be done with bricks. Okay, so there are no drywalls. Usually because wood is expensive, so most constructions they are not going to have a lot of wood, and most of the work done by contractors is going to be of a much more durable material and technique. And as a consequence, I know that in the United States, let's say a house in New Jersey, a house in New York, a house in California, if you have a water leakage right through the ceiling and this water flows through the structure, in theory you could have this house destroyed upon beyond recovery, right? Am I wrong, right? Like, I mean, water damage in New Jersey, New York is massive, right? Like, usually you're gonna need to replace the walls, the finishing, the painting. If you have water, in the cabinets, you're gonna need to, basically just discard everything. So, as a consequence, insurance in the U.S. it's crazily expensive, all right, from the Brazilian perspective, and in Brazil, from the U.S. perspective, the insurance for a house is gonna be crazily affordable. So that's the rule. Of course, there are exceptions. If you have a specific house that it does have a lot of drywall, a lot of wood, and if it is a really high amount, and if the insurance company, if they send an inspector to your house, the inspector is going to say, all right, this is a different ball game, okay? But I can tell you that 90% of the properties in Brazil are going to have an insurance cost that's going to be a fraction of what you pay in the United States. So that was on the property front. Now let's talk about the vehicles, right? The vehicles, I would say, it's closer to probably what you pay in the United States for a reason, because like in Brazil, unfortunately, we have a much higher degree of stolen vehicles. Okay, stolen vehicles, and meaning that the insurance companies they are going to be required to pay a much higher number of cases. In the United States, there is no. I would guess. I mean, there are not that many stolen vehicles, but on the other side, there are the high compensation amounts that insurance companies need to pay in the event of a personal injury, right? So the personal injury is probably the highest cost component for insurance companies in the United States, and in Brazil we don't have, personal injury in Brazil is not, they are not nearly as high in terms of compensation as it is in the United States, but on the other hand we have stolen vehicles. So they are more, similar in Brazil. Okay, Steve, I hope that helps. In terms of requirements for insurance on automobile, last time I checked it, there was none. Okay, so basically, I'm not sure if there was one recently, like there was actually a bill in Congress, like they were trying to make like in the United States that you have a mandatory insurance. And in Brazil, we didn't have it for most of our adult lives, like a mandatory insurance requirement. People are gonna insure a vehicle in Brazil not because law mandates, but because if you don't do it, you're gonna be in a very bad spot if someone steals your car, because then you have zero, right? Like I mean, so it's better for you to pay insurance because there is always a high chance someone's gonna steal your car, and if they steal your car, you get your car back because of the insurance you're paying, but not because it's mandatory like it is in the United States. And the United States, the idea is not that you're gonna get your car back. The idea is that if you like injury someone, the insurance is gonna pay even if you broke, right? That's the concept. All right, let's see. Moses, welcome, Moses. Good to see you over here. Moses is always around. Moses is also an investor in Brazil real estate. Moses says, how are you, sir? Pretty good. I hope you are well, Moses. I'm happy to see you again. My question is, if a baby born in Brazil gets naturalized, meaning, right, this baby is going to get a second citizenship. I know that the parents get residency. What will the baby siblings under 6 years be given? That's correct. So for those who do not know, if you have a child in Brazil, the parents are gonna get access to the Brazilian residency, right? It's not the citizenship. Nobody gets citizenship because a child was born in Brazil. So the way it works is you get residency. Siblings, not surprisingly, right, can get residency based on the fact that the parents need to stay with the child. So this is common, okay? We have not that many, but we do have several clients here at the firm. They come like, I don't know, usually they will come from, Africa, developing nations, but surprisingly, like we have a recent couple from South Korea. Look at that, from South Korea. They came to Brazil to have a child. So once they have a child, the child is going to get a birth certificate. The birth certificate says, well, child was born in Brazil, child is Brazilian. And based on this birth certificate alone and a bunch of other requirements that are going to be time consuming, and that's why people are going to hire us to help them in this document journey and meeting the requirements, they are going to apply for the permanent residency. And yes, if you have a Brazilian child, you can apply for the permanent residency from the get-go, okay? Not after 1,000 months, no. After, as soon as you get the birth certificate for the child, you also, of course, need your own documents, like legalized for Brazil. You also need like a really high-level background check in your country of origin, in your country of residency, with the apostille, with sworn translation. So there is a bunch of paperwork, okay? It's not just the birth certificate for the child. It's a lot of documents on top of that. But once you get those things, you're gonna get residency. And here, Moses, I think that your question is about the siblings, because you're saying, listen, someone told me the siblings are gonna get citizenship, and that's not correct. They're not gonna get citizenship right away. They are gonna be able to apply for residency, okay? They're gonna be able to apply for residency right away. So parents get the residency, siblings get the residency, okay? And if they are of a certain age, they can apply after all of this, after all of those things that I said. They are not easy, they are not quick. Children of a certain age, they can apply for provisory citizenship because they are permanent residents in Brazil, and then they can apply for the provisory citizenship without taking the Portuguese test, for instance. All right, but nobody gets citizenship just because a baby was born in Brazil. Okay, Moses, that's very important because people come to us all the time. Well, I heard I can have a child in Brazil, I'm gonna become a citizen. That's not true. Okay, that's a misconception. First, you're gonna, gather a bunch of papers that is very heavy in terms of, the steps you're gonna need to take. Once you have everything, plus the birth certificate for your child in Brazil, yes, you're gonna apply directly for the permanent residency. There is no need for temporary residency. You go straight to the permanent residency. After you get the permanent residency, you as the parent, you're gonna need to wait for at least 1 year of continued residency in Brazil. All right, not surprisingly, people come to us say, well, I'm gonna have a baby here. Next month I get a passport, I travel back to my country of origin. Am I gonna be able to apply for citizenship 1 year later? No, you're not. You need to live in Brazil for a full year. If you live in Brazil for a full year after the child was born, then yes, you can apply for the citizenship as long as you are able to speak, to write, to listen, and to read advanced Portuguese. And I'm talking about advanced Portuguese, not intermediary. So again, here there is another catch. People say, well, 1 year I can apply for the citizenship. Not usually, because people don't learn a language in a year, right? Usually it takes more than a year. So not surprisingly, most people are going to be able to apply for the citizenship after 4 years, okay, not 1 year, right? So here you see another distinction. Parents, first permanent residency, then you need to learn Portuguese, and then you need to sit for a demanding exam, and only if you pass the exam, then yes, you're gonna secure the residency. The citizenship. Now, siblings. A good thing for the siblings, they learn the language in no time, right? Like 6 months, very common for children of this age. 6 years, 10 years, 12 years old. They learn in 6 months. They're speaking fluent Portuguese without an accent, right? That's amazing. Now, for them, after they secured the permanent residency, then they can apply right away for the provisory citizenship. They don't need, of course, to sit for the Portuguese exam. So I think that's the misconception that I see happening all the time. People asking, are they gonna get a citizenship? And if you think about it, it doesn't make sense for a child to be born and the sibling should get citizenship out of thin air, right? But the concept here is, if the siblings are permanent residents and the parents want to apply for the temporary or the provisory citizenship, yes, these children, they are going to qualify without further examination, which is going to be the case for the parents. All right, Moses, there was a very interesting question. It gave us an opportunity to explore this route, which, again, it's commonly misunderstood by the expats and foreign citizens in general. All right, I see here the Stork 2. The Stork 2, welcome to the group, Stork. Let us know if you have any questions. I hope to see your comments around. Moses, the exchange you will get when you send the money to the construction company, if you see the official exchange rate at 5.4 before the construction company gets the money, will be reduced by 20 cents or more. It sounds about right. Okay, that's usually what you're gonna see. So if today you're getting R$5.40 for a dollar, right? Like if you access xe.com is a major currency exchange reference across the countries, and if xe.com is talking about 5.4, currency exchange banks in general, they are not going to pay you more than 5.20, and the difference between the 5.4 and the 5.2 is like roughly 20 cents, and this is going to be the compensation for the currency exchange bank that is going to do like a ton of procedures to allow your money to be released. Okay, there is no such a thing as sending money to Brazil. Money is going to show up in Brazil. There is no such a thing. any bank receiving the currency, they are going to need to complete a compliance, a full verification of the transaction before the money is released, right? So this reduction in money, you are actually compensating the bank, and it's never the sender bank, right? Like if you're sending money from the United States, Chase Bank, for instance, they're gonna get paid $40. That's all they get. They don't get a cent more than $40. Now, the receiver bank in Brazil, they are the ones who are gonna need to handle this completely crazy compliance process, right? Just a quick example. Purchase agreement, they are going to read every single line. Deed for the property, they are going to check every single page for the deed, right? When you are about to pay the final amount, you're going to need to make sure to present to the bank that you paid, for instance, the taxes for the closing and a bunch of other things. I like to share, like particularly when we are explaining our services to prospective clients for the real estate transaction, that just for the currency exchange alone, sometimes we have over 200 points of communication with the currency exchange bank, right? So it's a massive work, and there is a cost for that. So if you're dealing direct with the bank, you're gonna save our money, so you don't need to pay us. You're gonna just pay the currency exchange bank. The downside is that the currency exchange bank or the end bank handling the currency exchange, they are not going to interact with you. Like they are not going to, be exchanging 200 messages. They present you a list of documents. You either meet the requirements or not. And in many occasions, a new client here, the firm, is coming to us after the receiver bank in Brazil says, listen, I don't like what you provided. And guess what? I'm sending your money back to the source. And then usually this client is going to be in trouble because there's going to be a certain time window for them to perform. And because the money, came to Brazil and is being returned, they're going to be under, like a lot of pressure to close under a certain date or to pay fines of up to 10%. Usually customary is going to be 10%. Some contracts, they're going to say 10% plus damages, right? So this thing could be a huge amount of money. And therefore, many of our clients, they come to us and say, listen, I don't want to play games. I don't want to, take the chances. Let's do this thing right from the get-go. Okay, but in terms of distinction, of description in price, Moses, that's pretty standard, right? Banks, they need to be compensated. And particularly if you're using everyday banks in Brazil, usually the difference is going to be even higher, right? When you work with a currency exchange bank, specializing currency exchange bank, they can work with smaller spreads. But if you're working with Banco do Brasil, Banco Itaú, Bradesco, and so on, usually when you send the money to the seller is like a hostage, right? The seller can't take the money. Like if the seller has a bank account with Itaú, and then the seller says, Itaú, what rate are you going to give me? After the money was sent, never before. The bank doesn't tell you how much they're going to charge you. That's not how it works. Banco Itaú gets the money. After Banco Itaú has possession of the money, they're going to say, listen, I'm going to use this rate. And if you don't like it, you can't take the transaction elsewhere because the money is with Banco Itaú. So you're going to either accept the rate or you're going to send the money. You're going to ask Banco Itaú, listen, I don't want to close, send the money back to the source. Right? So that's why everyday banks in Brazil, usually not surprisingly, they are not going to offer you the best rates possible. All right, Etienne, Brazil. Welcome, Etienne. I think I saw you before. Welcome back. Great information. Thank you, sir. Thank you for participating. And I think you can tell I get excited with these questions. We can always, help foreign citizens by discussing all these nuances. And at the same time, of course, we are also promoting our services because, yes, if you want to have something more of a turnkey, of a specialized service, we are going to be here for you. All right. Lindsay. All right, Lindsay, welcome back. I know Lindsay has been here before. Hello, Luciano. Am I able to apply for loans in Brazilian banks as an immigrant American citizen? Lindsay, so if you go to Caixa, all right, Caixa Banco, all right? Caixa translates as box, okay? And it's the most traditional bank in Brazil for mortgage. They are not going to touch your application, okay? Because they're traditional, they're funded by the government. They don't want to handle foreign citizens. So if you go to Caixa, goodbye to your application, no luck. Now, two banks we've been sharing with people in your case, it's going to be Santander and it's going to be Banco Inter, okay? Santander and Banco Inter. And depending on how much you're going to pay, and the documents that you have and your proof of income, yes, you may be able to get a mortgage. But, think about Caixa. Caixa, they don't want to deal with foreign citizens because they cannot understand the paperwork from, I don't know, 200 different countries, right? So they are going to say, listen, I'm going to be dealing with Brazilians only because I understand, the proof of income. I can tell if that proof of income is legit or not. And I can structure this transaction in a way that I am most probably not going to lose any money. But with foreign citizens, like it's a different ball game. First off, because foreign citizens, most of the time they are not a resident, right? They are still a traveler, right? Someone visiting Brazil, and from this perspective, naturally the bank doesn't wanna handle your mortgage as badly as they wanna handle the transaction from a Brazilian citizen. Okay, with potentially other assets that they could go after, right? So if you don't perform, the Brazilian bank, the only thing that they can do is to go after your property, and therefore, usually they're gonna ask you for a higher down payment than they would from a Brazilian buyer, and they are not gonna be super excited to help you. Okay, I hope that makes sense, Lindsay. All right. The gentle chief, that was very informative. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your participation, chief. I hope to see you again. Ronnie is chiming in. Yes, it is amazing. Homes are built much better in Brazil and sell much cheaper than the US. Listen, Ronnie, you probably see me here like highlighting a bunch of things that I really love from the US, right? But constructions is not gonna be one of them. I am, like extremely surprised, and I've been, spending time in the United States for a few decades now, and I'm always surprised on how cheap, houses are made. The materials, and I don't know, like they look like a toy to us Brazilians, right? Because in Brazil, like, I mean, you could get a hammer and you could hammer the walls. You could, I don't know, bring, water hoses and water everything. And the house would still be pretty much the same afterwards, right? If you do any of those things in the US, I don't know, a wall, right? Like, I mean, I remember when I spent some time in a house with my kids, my older kid who was practicing some type of martial arts, and he was like punching the wall, and he would teenagers, right? Like he would basically break through the wall with punches, and try to do that in Brazil, and you're gonna learn a very good lesson and understand why from us Brazilians' perspective, houses in the United States, they are just not worth. They're horrible in terms of materials. They're beautiful, yes, they are really beautiful in terms of decoration, of renovation. Everything looks so sharp. But if anything happens, this house, is no good anymore. So from us, like when you look at a Brazilian house, that's what we really wish we could have when we are in the United States. And Ronnie is there to basically support my assertion. Thank you for sharing, Ronnie, a really nice sharing. Moses, what is the minimum wage in Brazil? Moses, in Brazil, the minimum wage, I think, is around 1,700 reais. Okay, so let's see, 1,700 divided by 5.5, roughly $310 a month. Okay, and another thing to consider, Moses. $310 a month, which is extremely low. For sure, it could be much more. I wish it was at least $500. But something else you consider is like a lot of the benefits that a worker is going to get from the employer, they are not like this dollar sign or this amount. Like they're going to get benefits and other things and taxes altogether. Whenever you see the $310, the employer is going to be basically paying twice that, okay, because of benefits, of taxes to the government. So roughly, I would say is like a minimum wage employer is going to cost $610. And I would assume like the vast majority of Brazilian workers, they don't work for a minimum wage, right? They're going to receive more. Particularly if you have a college degree, most probably than not, you would be paid more than $1,000 per month. Okay, and remember, like if you've been paid $1,000 per month, the company, the employer is actually spending $2,000, which by Brazilian standards is a lot of money. Okay, by the way, so usually, college degree, I don't know, like not really a beginner, but not like an experienced worker, being paid $1,000 a month, and the company, the employer is going to be actually taking out of pocket like $2,000 a month. All right, I hope that helps with this information, Moses. All right, we have Stork 2, the Stork. I'm aware a consultation would be initially needed, but how much would you charge me for a retirement visa? More or less? Just ring the bell, please. Absolutely, the Stork. We charge $1,250 for the retirement visa, and the retirement visa is probably the most difficult visa at the firm. Okay, in terms of steps and paperwork. In addition to that, Stork, not everyone, right? Like I mean, we have a lot of sharp senior citizens, or but some of the retirement visa applicants, they are not really good with computers, or they are busy, or they don't like to follow directions. Usually, the retirement visa is a visa that we're not going to be pushing out there. Okay, like it's a visa that most of the time people are going to come to us, and they say, listen, I need a retirement visa, and we're going to say, all right, you need it, we're going to help you. Okay, but it's not a visa that we are super excited to offer, because of this combination of cumbersome requirements, excessive cumbersome requirements, and sometimes the clients, they are not as how can I say, how fast to get the requirements that we need. Right? Some people, they hire us and say, well, I hired you, go out there and take care. But there's stuff we cannot, get from out there on your behalf, and we need the retirees to help us out. So usually, we're not super excited, okay, to offer the retirement visa. But listen, our services, in a certain way, they are almost like it's not a public type of work, but there is like this combination of, it's a private service, but there are some concerns that are more like sociologic, or like that we understand we need to help some people no matter what. So as long as our clients, they are respectful, sometimes we are even able to work with more difficult type of clients. And for some reason, like the retirement visa, it does attract a higher percentage of difficult clients. Okay, I'm just explaining these nuances, and this is gonna result in a price tag, which I don't think it is high, by the way, like $1,250, particularly when you consider like the immigration visas from the United States, right? Like whatever you're gonna do in the United States, when you look at the whole cost from beginning to end, it usually starts at $5,000, $10,000, right? So $1,250 for a retirement visa, I think it's pretty reasonable. I hope this information helps the Stork, and keep the participation coming. Good to see you over here. All right, Camila Sonier. Camila is Camila is shy. She doesn't want to say anything. Camila, it's good to see you over here. Let us know your thoughts, and I hope to hear from you. The Cold War channel, not TD Bank, bad investment. All right. TD Bank, I think there was TD Bank in the United States. Now there is TD Bank in just in Canada, right? The Cold War, and I don't recall seeing TD Bank in Brazil, but I think TD Bank in the United States, at least it was between 2004 and 2010. It was Commerce Bank. Commerce Bank. I remember this bank I saw in the United States. They had, the C from Commerce Bank. You could get a piggy bank, right? I'm not sure if that's the name of those, things that you use to keep coins. Maybe it's, I don't know. I used to think about it as a piggy bank, and there was one that was a C, a red C for Commerce Bank. But I think TD Bank bought Commerce Bank a long time ago, and TD Bank, if I'm not mistaken, is not present in the United States anymore, but maybe Canada, but not in Brazil that I know, Cold War. So let me know if that information is correct. Benny P, welcome back. I think I saw you over here. How much you charge for a consultation? Benny P, we have like different, we have a couple of different amounts. We have our standard amount is $125 for the consultation. If you get one of our ebooks, you get a coupon. I think it's a 20% discount or a $25 discount. Like some people, they say, well, I don't want to pay a consultation. Like consultation in Brazil, it's the consultation fee in Brazil is mandatory. It's not optional. We have like this rule coming from the Brazilian Bar Association. So we are really surprised when attorneys they don't charge a fee. So it's mandatory for us attorneys to charge a fee. In addition to that, right? Like I mean, something that I discuss here internally at the firm or sometimes with other attorneys, Brazil is a place of joy. Okay, even for us Brazilians, we see Brazil as a place of joy. There are amazing things in the United States and Europe, across the world, but from a joy perspective, it's really difficult to beat Brazil, even for us Brazilians, okay? What you tell about people from abroad. So not surprisingly, there are a lot of people out there who are just basically dreaming about Brazil, right? They are dreaming about Brazil. They are facing, I don't know, a 9 to 5 in a place that they didn't want it to be, but they're still working. They need to work. And then they are going to sometimes try to find a partner to dream about Brazil. So they are not really at a stage in which they need an attorney or a legal service, but they're still, like, all right, how much is this visa? What can I do? Here is a laundry list of questions for you to answer, right? And if we were to entertain all of that outside of our live stream, like we wouldn't be working. We would be answering questions all day long without doing any lawyer work. So from this perspective, it is a strategy here at the firm. We do charge a consultation. If you say, listen, I'm not willing to pay a consultation, I respect that, but we are not the firm for you. You need to go elsewhere. But like whenever you participate in our consultations, you're gonna get decades and decades of experience with people just like you, okay? And a single consultation, in my opinion, can save you thousands and thousands and thousands, if not dozens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in mistakes when coming to Brazil. So don't think about the cost. Like we just charging the 125 is mostly, for you to take our consultation seriously and pay a fraction of our time. Okay, usually our team, like when you are having a consultation with our team, usually with me, but we do have some other attorneys. The hourly rate for an attorney like us is substantially higher than what you're paying for the consultation. So we're not making money out of the consultation. Trust me, okay? I'm not bragging, but listen, just in my example, right? I'm licensed in California, I'm licensed in Texas, I'm licensed in Brazil. And I have, friends of mine from California who are, like maybe 20 years younger than I am, that they are charging 3 times what we charge here at the firm. 3 times, right? So it's not double, it's 3 times. So whenever we have a consultation, is not to make money, is actually to help people out. Trust me, we're not making money out of consultation. Okay, but that was the answer for the consultation. Lindsay, thank you so much, Luciano. Thank you, Lindsay, for your participation. I do hope to see you again here. Benny P, what if you are a permanent resident? Can you use your American income to get a loan if you're saving in Brazilian reais and have a Brazilian bank account? If you are a permanent resident, Benny, it does help you a lot, because then the bank is going to the bank is going to see you with different eyes, right? They say, listen, Benny is a resident. Benny is not going anywhere. Benny is going to stay here around. And then, yes, your income from the United States, particularly for some banks, they may take your income abroad in consideration, okay? Government banks, forget about, they're going to look at it and they're going to say, listen, this doesn't mean anything to me. But these more like private banks, banks that are trying to be, like more innovative, yes, they're starting to take into consideration income from abroad. All right. The Cold War sharing, they did bad. Okay. They did bad. KJYC. Okay. All right. I hear you. All right. So TD Bank, no good. That's Cold War's take on it. All right. We have a Moses. We are about. I got really excited with your participation today. We are almost like 1 hour, 1.5 hours into our live stream, and that's because you guys had such an interesting participation. But let's take a couple of additional. I see an error here. Like, can you guys see me? I see an error showing on YouTube. I hope you guys are able to see me and hear me, but tell me if that's not the case. All right, let's move on to the last couple of questions. Moses, to buy a property that has just been launched before construction begins, it is worth $70,000. How much will you charge me to help me in the closing? No need to do diligence or property search. Moses, we have a block of hours. Okay, we have a block of hours. We have a block of 5 hours. We charge 5,000 reais, which is less than $1,000. It's 5 hours with a real estate attorney. We can do like a review of the document of the purchase agreement. We can do some, very low level background check on the developer. Okay, and this could be a good matching because a good point, like pre-construction projects, particularly if you're buying from a larger developer, they would traditionally require less work from the attorney because they are more of a stable player in the market. The problem is when you're buying from a private seller, right? Like a private seller, they come with all the luggage in the world you can think about. There is a bunch of sellers out there with serious problems. And if you buy a property from a private seller, then you do need everything from A to Z. But just like as Moses is suggesting over here, when you're buying a pre-construction property, usually, the risk of non-performance is lower. But listen, is it still out there, right? Like, I like to say, Moses, that's an information for you to consider. If you're buying from Gafisa is one of the largest developers in Brazil. My take is like that. As long as there is no Third World War, you should be good. Right? Maybe you don't even need to hire. But if there is a global war, I guarantee half of the developers in Brazil, they are gonna go bankrupt. Okay, half of the developers. The other half, they are not necessarily go bankrupt, but maybe they are not going to deliver this property anytime soon. Maybe, if a world war is going to last, 5 years or 10 years and we survive, let's hope so, right? Like maybe after the war, maybe they're going to think about building whatever they promised and deliver, right? So there is always a risk component. But with Gafisa, I mean, there is almost nothing to be checked on the developer's performance. The concern here is going to be usually, how to pay, right? Like some of them, they want you to pay locally. If you're going to get the title, if you're married, if you're single, the type of paperwork you're going to need. So you still need some level of advisor. And that's why I mentioned the block of 5 hours, right? The block of 5 hours, it may be sometimes enough for a purchase from a large developer on pre-construction properties. But anyhow, I mean, the usual kickoff is going to be a consultation, because with a consultation, then we can review an existing opportunity, and then right there we can share a lot of helpful information for your planning, Moses. All right. All right. Last question. And by the way, I see here Renata Iscarano. We have had a consultation with Luciano. It was so worth it. Thank you so much, Renata. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to hear from you. And yes, I mean, our consultations, they are usually packed with information. You know that we do a lot of screen sharing. We do a lot of, explanation. You ask the questions, and it has a whole dynamic, right? Like it's almost like a teamwork. You as the client, we as the attorney, plus resources we bring from the internet, plus resources we bring from our past transactions. I appreciate your participation, Renata, and I hope to see you again soon. All right. The Stork 2, I have 2 passports, 2 citizenships, US and France. Can I go as a tourist into Brazil for 6 months with one passport, then stay out for a few weeks, then return to Brazil with the other passport in 1 year? Stork, I'm just gonna summarize our answer, and that's a pretty interesting question. But the answer is no. You are a single person, right? You're not 2 separate people, right? You are a single person who happens to have a U.S. Citizenship and a French citizenship, but you are a single person. So in theory, you should not do that, okay? And I know of some people who have done that in the past. My recommendation is to avoid this kind of approach, because nowadays, like when you arrive in Brazil, you're gonna see that we are starting to use those machines that are gonna take a picture of you, and they are actually building this database with your picture, linking your picture to your ID, right? So assume that you're doing that, using 2 passports. In theory, I'm not sure if today, but if not today, I would say pretty soon, the Brazilian immigration is going to be able to, look at your picture, and then 2 nationalities or 2 citizenships are going to pop up. And if you have used up or your allowed time based on your U.S. Passport, guess what? They're going to say, listen, that's not how it works. You don't get like a stay per citizenship. You're just a single person. And then they would look at the, let's say, potentially the citizenship giving you more time, and they would say, that's your limit. Forget about the second one, because you got everything that you should get. All right? Absolutely, the Stork. Listen, I'm just, explaining the law does not allow, and I'm just explaining the reasoning. It's an interesting question, and I would have the same question if I was you. Okay, so it's all good. Please show up again, the Stork. There is no bad question. All questions are good. I guarantee the same question that you just asked, there are 10 other people right now in our live stream who had the same question in their heads, but they didn't ask. So thank you for asking. And we're gonna finish up our live stream today. If you didn't like our live stream, please do so. Your likes are how you can, help us out here at the channel. And the more likes we get, the more people are gonna find out about our live streams, and our content is also gonna be found by more people out there. Thank you again. You guys have a blessed rest of your Sunday, and see you again on Wednesday.